In 1986, in the small village of Narborough, England, a quiet revolution in crime-solving began. Two teenage girls had been raped and murdered, and local authorities were desperate for leads. What cracked the case wasn't a witness or a confession. It was something invisible to the eye: DNA. For the first time in history, a man was convicted of murder based solely on genetic evidence. That man was Colin Pitchfork, and his conviction ushered in a new era. Fast forward to the 21st century. DNA has become the cornerstone of modern forensic science. It's used in everything from verifying paternity to solving the most chilling cold cases imaginable. But it's not just the science that's advanced. It's the people behind it. These new heroes aren't always in uniform. They're lab techs, genealogists, even civilian sleuths. Together, they've become the new breed of detectives, DNA detectives. But the most seismic shift came in 2018, when a decades-old monster was unmasked. For over 40 years, a mysterious figure known as the Golden State Killer had evaded justice. He raped, murdered, and terrorized across California. 12 confirmed murders, over 50 rapes, and more than 100 burglaries. The case had gone cold for decades. Then came a breakthrough. Law enforcement uploaded crime scene DNA to an open-source genealogy database. Within months, they had a match. The killer was Joseph James D'Angelo, a former police officer hiding in plain sight. He was arrested in his quiet Sacramento suburb, stunned that his past had finally caught up with him. That arrest sent shockwaves through both the law enforcement community and the public. Suddenly, genetic genealogy became the hottest tool in criminal investigation. Instead of waiting for a criminal to be in a national database, detectives could now identify unknown DNA by tracing family trees built from consumer DNA kits like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe. By comparing matches and building reverse family trees, even distant relatives could lead to the suspect's front door. But this wasn't just about big names like D'Angelo. Across the U.S., local police departments began reopening cold cases, some forgotten for 30 or 40 years, with newfound hope. In cases where traditional leads had dried up and suspects had passed lie detectors, DNA offered a silent, irrefutable witness. One such case was that of Christine Jessup, a 9-year-old girl abducted and murdered in Ontario in 1984. In 2020, DNA linked her murder to a man named Calvin Hoover, who had died by suicide years earlier. The relief was bittersweet. Her family finally had answers, but no justice could be served. Still, for them, knowing who mattered more than ever knowing why. Behind these breakthroughs are dedicated teams, some working under police departments, others in private labs. Companies like Parabon Nanolabs have partnered with authorities to analyze decades-old biological evidence and sketch out potential suspects using only strands of DNA. And the impact has been global. In Sweden, the 1984 murder of Helena Andersson was reopened with new forensic techniques. In Australia, the disappearance of Clive Brown gained traction with updated DNA testing. Wherever DNA has been preserved, there's a chance for resolution, even if the rest of the trail has long gone cold. But the rise of DNA detectives isn't just a triumph of technology. It's a testament to perseverance. Many of these cases were closed, shelved, and forgotten until a tiny strand of evidence sparked a second chance. As we look deeper into this world, we must ask, if science can speak for the dead, what stories still remain to be told? In the next chapter, we'll explore how consumer DNA kits, designed to trace your ancestry, have become weapons of justice in the hands of digital detectives. The explosion of at-home DNA testing kits wasn't designed for catching killers. It was meant to connect families. Millions of Americans spat into tubes, curious about their ancestry or eager to learn if they had royal blood or a long-lost sibling. What they didn't know was that their family trees might become lifelines for unsolved murders. Enter genetic genealogy, the technique that changed everything. In 2018, when law enforcement used GeneMatch, a free public genealogy site, to help identify the Golden State Killer, the world saw just how powerful family DNA could be. Joseph James D'Angelo didn't submit his DNA to any database, but distant relatives did. Investigators uploaded DNA from the crime scene to GeneMatch, and through fourth cousins and dozens of ancestral branches, they zeroed in on D'Angelo. That case opened a floodgate. Now, police across the US and beyond were tapping into a brand new tool: you, or more precisely, your relatives. When someone sends their DNA to 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, or uploads it to GeneMatch, their genetic markers may match someone linked to a crime. Even if the person themselves is innocent, their family connection can lead investigators closer to a suspect. But how does it work? Once crime scene DNA is uploaded, investigators use SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, markers that track ancestry and traits, to find relatives in a database. From there, genealogists do what they do best: build a family tree. They track birth records, marriage licenses, death certificates, even social media posts. Eventually, they find someone who fits: age, location, history, and if the match is strong, they collect a DNA sample secretly, often from trash or a discarded cup, to confirm. And the results? Astounding. Take the case of Deborah Dalzell, a Florida woman raped and murdered in 1999. The case went cold for 20 years, until 2019, when detectives used genetic genealogy to trace the suspect. A DNA match confirmed Luke Fleming, who lived just a few miles from the crime scene. He had no criminal record, no prior suspicion, and would have never been caught through traditional means. Then there's the haunting murder of April Tinsley, an 8-year-old girl abducted and killed in Indiana in 1988. For 3 decades, her killer taunted police and the public with disturbing messages. In 2018, using genealogy, police identified John D. Miller. When confronted, he confessed. These are just a few of the dozens of cold cases solved since 2018. Some dating back to the 1970s, some as recent as the early 2000s. In nearly every case, it was a distant cousin, an uncle, or a sibling's innocent DNA test that cracked the mystery. Of course, this new frontier raises ethical concerns. Critics argue it blurs the line between privacy and public safety. In response, sites like GeneMatch changed their policies to require users to opt in for law enforcement matching. Yet even with these guardrails, the trend is clear. DNA isn't just a scientific tool. It's a network of evidence, stitched together by biology and curiosity. Still, not all stories end in arrest. Some cases hit dead ends, others uncover painful family secrets. But what's undeniable is that genetic genealogy has shifted the balance of power. Killers who once counted on time and silence are now being exposed by the very roots of their family trees. And it's not just experts solving these mysteries. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the rising role of citizen sleuths, ordinary people using extraordinary tools to crack the toughest cases. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. What was once the exclusive domain of forensics labs and trained detectives has now opened up to everyday citizens. Welcome to the world of citizen DNA sleuths, a growing group of hobbyists, genealogists, and true crime fans who are helping solve decades-old cold cases from their living rooms. One of the most recognized names in this space is Cece Moore, a self-taught genetic genealogist who is now assisted in solving over 150 cases. Working with companies like Parabon Nanolabs, Moore uses publicly available genetic databases and advanced family tree building to track down suspects law enforcement could never find alone. What's surprising? She's not a cop. She's not a forensic scientist. She started out researching her own ancestry and realized she had a skill for finding connections where others saw noise. In 2018, Cece made headlines with the case of April Tinsley, the 8-year-old girl who was raped and murdered in Indiana in 1988. The case had long gone cold until Moore used DNA from the crime scene, uploaded it to GeneMatch, and built an extensive family tree. That process led directly to John D. Miller, who lived in the area and fit the genetic profile. When police approached him, he confessed. That moment proved something chilling and powerful. The truth doesn't always stay buried. Not when DNA and determination collide. But Moore isn't alone. On Reddit, Facebook, and YouTube, a growing community of amateur sleuths is forming. These people pore over old crime scene details, try to reconstruct timelines, and, when DNA is available, offer their help building out possible family trees. Some cases attract thousands of eyes. Take the story of Lavender Doe, an unidentified murder victim found in Texas in 2006. Despite efforts by police, Her name and killer remained unknown. But online genealogy hobbyists collaborated through social media, tracked leads, and helped match the remains to Dana Lindahl through DNA. It was a grassroots breakthrough that ended over a decade of mystery. What makes this revolution even more fascinating is the accessibility of the tools. GeneMatch and FamilyTree DNA allow public uploads of raw DNA data. Sites like Ancestry.com provide digitized records and tree-building tools. Open-source mapping and forensic tools let users visualize crime scenes and timelines. Combined with AI and deep research communities, it's now possible for a persistent, patient citizen to help crack a case that once required a federal task force. But with this power comes controversy. Some experts warn of misidentification or privacy violations. Unlike law enforcement, citizen sleuths aren't bound by rules of evidence or civil liberties. This raises ethical questions. What if an innocent person is wrongly accused on social media? What if a distant cousin becomes a suspect just because their DNA is in a database? Yet, for families of the missing and murdered, these modern detectives offer something more valuable than technology: hope. They chase cases no longer active, hunt answers long forgotten, and work tirelessly, for free, to help deliver justice. In many ways, their passion has reignited police efforts too. Now, local departments are reaching out to genealogy experts for help with long cold files. From armchairs and laptops, these everyday people are changing lives, one strand of DNA at a time. But there's still a big question looming. What happens after the killer is found? In the final chapter, we'll explore the impact of these breakthroughs on families, victims, and the future of criminal investigations. Every cold case cracked by DNA is more than just a solved puzzle. It's a seismic shift for the families who have waited years, even decades, for answers. But what happens after the handcuffs click shut? What does justice look like when it's delivered years too late? For the families of the victims, resolution is bittersweet. Take the case of Christine Jessup, a 9-year-old Canadian girl abducted and murdered in 1984. Her case haunted investigators and wrongly implicated an innocent man. It wasn't until 2020, thanks to genetic genealogy and DNA evidence, that Calvin Hoover, a former family friend, was identified as her true killer. But there was no arrest. Hoover had died by suicide years earlier. For Christine's mother, the news brought both relief and pain. Justice came, but too late to face the man who stole her daughter. This is the emotional reality of many DNA-solved cold cases. The closure is real, but so is the grief that comes rushing back. In the US, the Golden State Killer case stands as the most high-profile example. After terrorizing California in the 1970s and 80s with murders and rapes, Joseph James DeAngelo was finally identified in 2018 through DNA and genealogy. His arrest and guilty plea provided long-awaited justice for dozens of victims and their families. But beyond justice, these breakthroughs rewrite history. Innocent people previously accused are finally exonerated. Cold cases are reopened with fresh hope and advanced tools. Law enforcement agencies are now allocating funding specifically for genetic genealogy research. In fact, some police departments are building dedicated DNA genealogy units. They're investing in training and tools that bridge the gap between science and detective work. Partnerships with forensic labs like Parbon Nanolabs and nonprofit groups like the DNA Doe Project are now common, giving authorities access to world-class expertise. And the pace is accelerating. In 2023 alone, more than 400 cold cases worldwide were solved or significantly advanced due to DNA and public genealogy databases. These include long-lost murder victims, unidentified remains, and even serial offenders who had vanished into ordinary life. But where does this leave us? It leaves us in a world where no secret is safe, where a killer's past can rise up and confront them decades later. A world where one strand of hair, a discarded cigarette butt, or a trace of skin under a fingernail can upend a quiet life built on lies. It also opens the door to new ethical questions. Should DNA from genealogy sites be freely available to law enforcement? How do we balance the right to privacy with the pursuit of justice? Will this technology be used only for good, or could it be abused? As courts and legislatures race to catch up with technology, the truth is undeniable. DNA is the future of justice. For families, this future brings light into dark places. It gives them the power to tell their loved ones' stories with an ending. It's not perfect. It doesn't erase the pain, but it offers something that many thought they'd never receive: the truth. The age of cold cases lasting forever is ending. The ghosts of the past can now be confronted, identified, and, finally, put to rest. Because science doesn't forget even when humans do. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more true crime story.